Hey YouTube, in this video I'm just going to be going over to the replies to the scenario I described in, it was actually 2 videos ago. It's basically like an EMP scenario, and I said, you and your family and your important people are going about their day doing stuff like at work or at school or whatever. So basically, all the power's out, all electronics don't work, cars don't work, and you just have to get everyone together and get them back home and then proceed from there how you would. And so I've got 3 different replies here that I'm going to go over. The first one is from Prepping Sappers. And he says he has specific plans in place in case of different scenarios, and basically his family can pull up the cheat sheets that they've already made and follow instructions, and everyone's within a few miles, so it wouldn't be such a big deal. I say it's a pretty good idea to have some kind of cheat sheet that lets everyone know what to do in different scenarios, and if people are in different places, where they should head to, and that sort of thing. You'd also want to make sure that the family members all kind of like have it memorized too, because if you're at school or something, you probably wouldn't have that with you. So yeah, I'd say that. And then what do you do in case something doesn't go according to plan? Like, say like Sappers is the first one to make it home, and it's been several hours, or maybe it's like getting dark and none of the rest of your family showed up yet. Then how do you proceed? Do you go out and look for them? Do you keep waiting? What would you do from there? And then afterwards, are you gonna wait a few days and try to bug in and see what happens there, or go ahead and bug out? And if you do decide to bug out, and this is kind of like EMP scenario, how do you haul all your gear out to where you're going? So those are be some considerations there. Jackhammer Mike left a really detailed comment. I'll go ahead and read it to you. He says, "Okay, Norwegian, I just pulled into work and the power went out. My truck doesn't work, the comms are out, and no way to communicate with my family. Ex-wife and son number 2, daughter's another 15 miles west of the ex, and son number 1 is in California. He's effed, because I know he lives in Arizona. So family is 20 miles north of his position." He says, "I'm grabbing my medical roll and the handy Beretta and walking back to my home. 15 miles is not so bad, and I can do it with no load in about 4 or 5 hours maybe. I'm looking for a bicycle to borrow while on the way there. There's no way for me to get my family, and if I were to go get them, when I get there, they don't have any gear. The cold hard reality is, if they don't come to me, and I've told them this, then there's nothing I can do for them. If my comms are completely trashed, then I will bug in until I have no other choice but to bug out. Hopefully Taco has filled the water bobs. He works closer to the 4th than I do, so we'll have an extra 200 gallons of drinking water. Even if the water supply pumps are not working, there should be water pressure. Then we set up a 24-hour watch and see who does what in our area. We make notes and watch for who leaves and who stays. We already know who has a pool, and so water will not be an issue. Our food will run out in maybe 6 months. Chances are that when it looks like we'll run out of food in a week or 2, we would probably opt to bug out to where we know we have abundant water in game. We also have a cache there, so we will have some backup. That will be at least a 4 or 5 day trip under cooler daytime temps. If it's 100, excuse me, if it's in the hundreds, the travel may be much slower. No way are we going to travel at night due to the cactus and snakes if it is summertime. Maybe in the winter we might travel at night." So that's a lot to break down, but start up at the beginning. So I know he lives like in the desert, and that's a really big consideration, like your environment, something you got to keep in mind. So yeah, 15 miles doesn't sound so bad, especially if you don't have any gear really on you besides a medical roll. I would say though, like, what if it's July and it's 2 in the afternoon, that'd be pretty hard to do without any water. So I don't know, maybe you already have this and you just enlist it, but I would recommend having like a CamelBak, like one of those water bags in your car, and like one of those Silco keys that you can use to get water from buildings. So you can keep that filled up, because I wouldn't want to do a hike that far in the heat of summer, even in Missouri where it's rarely up to 95 degrees. I can imagine doing it in the Arizona heat. So that could be tricky. And it kind of sucks as far as your family, that you can't really go get them, but hopefully they'll be able to make it to you. And as long as they know that's the plan and you plan on staying there for as long as you can, hopefully they'll be able to make it. I think it's good that you've kind of like let them know what they're supposed to do in that situation. Let's see, and the water bobs are another good thing to have, and that's if you do have something like that, which if you don't know, water bobs are basically like large plastic bags that you put in bathtubs and you can fill them up with water and it fills to the size of the bathtub. So those are like really good things to have. You just want to make sure you get them filled up pretty quickly in case the water pressure stops, because water out there will definitely be a huge issue for you. And then food for 6 months, that'd be a really, really good stockpile. So that puts you ahead of a lot of people. You just want to make sure you can make that food last for 6 months, and you don't have people trying to take it, because if in this scenario you're not probably going to be able to bug out with 6 months worth of food, especially how far your bug out location is, like 4 or 5 day trip with 6 months of food. Like, you just can't carry it all. You'd have to make several trips, and be like, people would know, they'd see what you were doing too. So being in a suburban environment, it's better than being in a truly urban environment for that. But you got to be able to defend it. And I think it's a good idea to do what you said, like kind of set up a watch what your neighbors are doing, because they can, you can learn a lot from that. I'd say as far as your neighbor with the pool, probably get to know them first, because they might not really have anywhere else to go, and they might end up not bugging out and staying there for a long time. And if they're not real friendly with you, they might not be real inclined to let you use up their water, but I'm sure they'd probably be willing to trade for some food if they didn't have any. But that'd be a good connection to go ahead and make if you haven't already. Then I'll go on to LM, the last comment. Let's see. I believe LM is female. She says, probably pretty basic. Teen son knows how to make his way home, not to be near the main streets, avoid crowds or groups of people, keep a low profile, don't cut through anyone's yard, to stay at home for starters. I think for the first day or two, we would go over what we have and get in the right mindset for safety, and being sure we have backpacks and walking shoes ready if something worst causes the home to be unsafe. Millions of people don't have bug out locations, but how long would bugging in town be doable before the unprepared start getting desperate? We can't expect the country folk to welcome everyone with open arms, right? And then she says, man, that's a lot to think about. And that raises some good points too, because one, it sounds like you only have the teen son to get home, and it's good that he sounds capable and kind of knows what to do in that situation. So hopefully, considering your home, or you're able to get home, if he could just meet up with you pretty quickly, that'd be good. You probably wouldn't run into too many issues there, hopefully. Especially like in this scenario, if an EMP happens, most people aren't probably really going to realize what's happening for at least a few hours. I'd say probably 15% of the population recognizes what an EMP is, and then out of that, 15%, maybe half of those are, you know, they have some kind of plan in place or like somewhat prepared or preppers essentially. So most people probably aren't going to realize what's going on, and most people aren't going to realize the severity of what's happened. Like the power's probably not going to come back on for a long time, and things are probably going to go downhill really fast. So as long as most people don't realize that for a while, you should be able to, you know, be able to move around freely and not get into a lot of trouble, at least for the first day, I would say. So, you know, being able to come from school or whatever shouldn't be that big of an issue. And then, yeah, what you say, millions of people don't have bug out locations, but how long would they be able to bug in before they get desperate and have to spread out? I would assume not very long, because most people don't even have 3 days of food kept in their house at all times. So, you know, after those 3 days, people are going to get hungry, and they're going to start doing desperate things to get food, and, you know, it's going to drive people out of the cities when there's people, like, fighting and killing each other and that sort of thing. So I think that's going to pretty quickly make a lot of people leave the area. And, yeah, I think you're right about, you know, the country folk won't be so welcoming. You know, a lot of people, they have plans to just kind of, like, cut through the country after the bug out location, because that's pretty much what you got to do, because you know, your bug out location's got to be in the country. You're gonna have to go cross country to be able to get to it, and you know, it's kind of smart to stay off the main roads, which that implies you're gonna probably have to be crossing over people's property, and you know, a lot of those people probably aren't gonna like it. So yeah, that's something you really need to think about, and you know, that I would say for that, try to move at night and be as discreet and as non-destructive as possible, because you know, you don't want to screw up their stuff. But yeah, it sounds like you probably, at least from this comment, that you don't have an actual bug out location yet, which that's fine, a lot of people don't. But I would seriously consider, you know, if you have the means, trying to get your own place, or finding a place with someone else, or even just finding like a state forest or national park or something close to you that's not more than 50 miles, and you know, kind of find a spot there where you could set up and survive, provided you have the skills and you could haul your stuff out there, because you know, you don't want to, you might be forced to bug out, and you want to have a place to go in the event that happens. One more thing I forgot to mention that Jackhammer Mike said was something about borrowing a bike. I would be kind of nervous about doing that, because, well, I know Mike is armed. You don't want to get caught stealing someone's bike who's also armed, because that could ruin things really quick. And basically, like, it'd be pretty unlikely for that to happen, but one, you just don't want to steal things, because you don't want to be a bad guy. Like, you might have just screwed over that other guy whose bike that was. Now they can't get home to their family or whatever. And then also, you know, eventually you're going to screw over the wrong person and probably get shot. So, sorry, Mike, but I'd be careful about doing that. I think in these kind of scenarios, you know, you want to be as non-confrontational as possible, because you can only survive so many confrontations. But yeah, I mean, you might be able to, you probably could get away with it, but I wouldn't want to do that too often. But yeah, that's basically it for today. So thank you all who replied and commented something, and thank you all for watching. Peace.